fomu ni hasla na mpango ni bottom up.
All those who are coming, they are welcome. Our party is very democratic, is very wide, and will accommodate everybody.
Question remain, will UDA manage to bring on board more leaders? Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
Okay, so that story sort of touts the times we live in. As you can see, the front page of the Standard, political fissures of men, as Daniel Kariuki has just illustrated in that report. Susan Kihika, Aisha Jumu, as you can see on the front page right there, sort of pushing the recruitment drive within the UDA party, even as Rigathi Gachagua is also playing a critical role, Aden Duale, the Garissa Town Member of Parliament. But in the ODM camp, Ali Hassan Joho, Wycliffe Oparanya equally, definitely doing the same job. Not forgetting Suna East Member of Parliament Junet Mohammed, who have been termed as political fixers who are shaping the State House contest. As you can see, Wiper Party, Mutula Kilonzo is right there, ANC's Cleophas Malala also playing a critical role, KANU through Nick Salat and William Kamket in one way or the other also pushing in terms of political fixing in the country. So this is a sign of the times we live in. And you being a political analyst, Ngunjiri, how do you react to this? Because looking at the report on page 6 of the Standard, their presence might actually be a key success factor in any election, these quote-unquote political fixes. What input do they put in terms of pushing an agenda?
You see, as an organized politician, you have to accept that winning over critics and winning over people who do not necessarily support you as you get to the home stretch is one of the strategic imperatives that you need to employ in your campaign. I want to say this to put this matter into context, and those of us who believe in the hustler nation are of the idea that as we move forward, and this has been the culture now, even those who disagree with us at some point will agree with what we, those who disagree with us at some point we will agree with what we have to offer. And this is the case. Today, politics in Kenya has been quoted as a natural setting that has been taken personal by certain people. Yet, politics in other advanced democracies have been taken as a game of competing ideas and a game of interests. So for us, we understand and appreciate that every politician and every Kenyan who participates in politics has an interest in it and also seeks a solution out of it. Boni Halwale was one of the biggest critics of the Deputy President, Jesse. Today, he's the one who is being tasked to bring people who disagree with the Deputy President to the camp. And so this tells you that politics is never and will never be a game that has permanent enemies or permanent friends. It is changing times, so do interests and circumstances shift. And so, over the next few months, not just the mainstream politicians, even those that are at the grassroots and who disagree with us, I'm sweeping this now from the side that I come from, Hustler Nation, we shall be pursuing not just the politicos, but the last man in the last village who might not have necessarily supported what we think and what we offer for Kenyans. And this is to make sure that we accommodate divergent opinions because it doesn't mean that perhaps those people will change what they think of a political party, but rather they will come and support us and make it better. And this is why the competitive advantage that will square it out in the next election will come from out of a constituency of the ideological differences that we have, out of a constituency of the tribal differences that we have, out of a constituency of the existing traditional political institutions that we have, and out of a constituency of the existing religious culture in Kenya, we are going to get, and this is a promise, that going forward, we are going to get as many people as possible participating in what we believe in, and also showing other political parties and other movements that it is possible for you to accommodate, for you to also entertain positive criticism that also makes you think and shapes things differently in your mind, and not to dismiss every other ideas that exist with the society, within the society.
So well noted, Ngunjiri.
It's a learning curve for others.
All right.
Now that our team is now constituting the likes of Ketu Arugoro, and I want to tell you, as I finish, that in Mount Kenya, and I want to speak with authority there, because I come from that place. Going forward, and for the next coming days, you will notice a massive entrance into the UDA party. And this is why the grassroots structure of stress and pressure is giving the aspirants sleepless nights if they are not within the platform of the UDA party.
So and perhaps the defection...
that is what will push them to decamp from whichever parties that they are in. And in Mount Kenya, if one decides to come up with a political party, like what we have seen being fronted in the Mount Kenya Unity Forum, at the end of the day, and I want you, Jesse, to call those who head those political parties to KTN here and ask them, so what do you seek as your final goal after you have done all this politics with your political party? They will tell you that the grassroots is giving us pressure to be in a platform that is pro-William Ruto. This is why Anne Waiguru, despite her being saved from being impeached by this same administration, Jubilee and ODM, and the handshake, she still had the guts to decamp from Jubilee and go to UDA, not following the instincts of the consequences that would have come after that, but rather because of safeguarding her political future, which could have been sacrificed as a result of making a wrong decision and remaining in an unpopular party, and which consequently had made her unpopular. I want to say...
So Ngunjiri, allow me to cut you short. I think we definitely need to hear from the other panelists, surely. So perhaps, Maliba, just a brief comment to what he's mentioned. Perhaps the season of defections is here with us, and it could be a sign of the times in terms of what the masses truly want. Are you reading the same from the Mount Kenya region? Even as we evaluate the Jubilee and ODM merger that is set to happen perhaps this month, as of what we're hearing from the Jubilee hierarchy. Well, what's your take on that? Have they sold the party to the opposition, as we had the Deputy President say earlier?
Well, I'm trying to imagine when someone talks about the merger of Jubilee and the ODM, what merger is there? Because ODM is a party, Jubilee is not a party at the moment. So I do not know, and I'm still trying to understand the wisdom behind those guys who are talking about doing a merger of what?
The Kileweke camp and the
ODM. Well, it just doesn't exist. Well, anyway, going back to what Ngunjiri was saying, quickly, first of all politics is local. So any practical politician would want to go with how, or rather respond to how what they call the ground feels like. The dynamics that actually dictate where or what you become in politics and where you go is so much of what they call the ground. But let's go back to the fishers of men, because that is exactly the core of this particular conversation. First of all, the holy grail of our politics, the holy grail of our political canon in Kenya at the moment is alliance building. Without alliance building, you can therefore not tell anyone. But even at county level, people are building alliances from one community to another. Our politics is actually, I think, as much as the world rates us as mid-range performing democracy, I think we are just kicking in proper democracy, where democracy and politics is meant to push us to speak to other people and therefore come up where you have convinced other people. Not just showing up and then with populism running around and selling snake oil and then winning an election and leaving us somewhere high and dry. So when you see what Boni Khalwale is doing, what Aisha Juma is doing and the others, these are what I want to call political marketers. They are the magnets with which UDA is actually using to attract talent to themselves. So whoever has got the best marketer here, by the way, in this particular season, will get the best talent, because quite a number of these guys who are actually the appointment of some of these political formations are the type that we say, if they open up their mouth, you lose 100,000 votes, or you lose 100 votes. So, and like I said earlier on, that alliance building is the holy grail of our politics going forward, that as many proficient and effective fishermen as you have in a season where you are supposed to gather all and scatter none, you then will actually, those people will determine if you are making progress or you drop along the way. So we are going to see this move on for quite a while, or at least until February, because the open season, I think, closes in largely February, before guys can actually then decide to have last-minute guys defecting. But one thing you have to realize with defectors is that defectors will not settle until and unless they have gotten their own, or rather whatever they are looking for. Because politics, at the very core of it, is about interests. So we are going to see that, and I know that at the moment, all politicians are actually buying time until January and February, because as it is today, if you defect in law, then somebody can easily move in and ensure that you are replaced. We still can actually do by-elections until sometimes, I think, in January or February. So politicians are buying time, but all of them are actually also ensuring that wherever they plan to go, there's a red carpet waiting for them. So this is going to be there for some time, but it's all in the spirit of gathering all and scattering none. So if you are unfortunate to have people who, when they speak, who when they engage other people, they then make them feel a little bit of uncomfortable, people will keep on living. So you hear Ngunjiri Wambugu saying on the other side that he's also listening to the ground. The ground is speaking, people are speaking, and politicians are being forced. I know guys will go out and say that leaders give direction, but that is assuming that the people you lead are completely without their heads, they are headless. Like Willy Mutunga will actually say, that's not true. The people we lead are not headless. So it's important to actually also, like, once in a while, go back and talk to the people. That is what representation is about.
Exactly, and this political fixers will definitely play a key role. So, Wakili Amondi, from where you sit, all things taken into context, when we're talking about political fixers, one would also tend to think that the push for unity, especially when it comes to perhaps the ODM camp and the One Kenya Alliance. Interestingly, just yesterday, Gideon Moi mentioned that Raila and President Kenyatta are also working with the coalition, perhaps fueling that speculation that in the end, the One Kenya Alliance and ODM might join hands come 2022. From where you sit, how do you analyze all this?
Jesse, if you look at the history of this country, more so after from 2002, then you realize that in all the elections that have followed then and thereafter, we have more or less had two camps which have also had ideological differences, and of course with some slight mix here and there. And I tend to believe that 2022 won't be any different. Of course, from history, we also realize that the coalition or the party, as it were, that would ultimately form the government with a president, it comes, the picture is drawn clearly around 3 months or so to the election. So that then one would expect going forward, and more so around let's say around March, April, or thereabouts, for things to be clear. On the question of the political fishers of men and the marketers, of course, these are guys who play a critical role. Where we are now, the season of defectors, of course, like my colleagues have said, my colleague has said, so far it would seem there's a lot of fishing, more or less from what has been described as a hustler nation. Yeah. But of course, we have to appreciate as well that the other side have been moving slow but sure, more so given the fact that they have sought to have a more structured way of crafting their, or rather selling their model. We are all aware that there was the idea of the constitutional change through the BBI initiative, which I believe, save for certain legal loopholes which stymied the process and that could have been avoided, the document, as it were, would well have, brought into the picture the trickle-down effect, as I had earlier on enumerated, by ensuring, amongst others, that you have more funds in the counties, by ensuring the doctrine of one person, one vote, that would have, as it were, increased the number of constituencies based on the number of, the population in a given area. We are also aware that pursuant to the same document, it would have ensured that, amongst others, there's a sense in which we bring in strong, entrenched, strong governance system, and in a way also fight corruption, so that then you would ensure that it's not just a question of increasing funds, even to the devolved units in a structured fashion, but also ensuring that the same funds are utilized well. Be that as it may, and of course because of those, the fact that the process was stymied by the court, you realize that the other side of the political divide is consolidating itself. We are aware that there is that move that has been made. I think it's a month ago, and like my colleague is saying, how Mount Kenya region is consolidated. Of course, we know that the other side has really not made so much move there. They started it a month ago, and we saw the impact, and one cannot tell where it will be, maybe in the next 3 or so months. And I can bet that at that time, do expect to see quite a number of defections. Of course, we also have to appreciate, and perhaps this would explain the, the defections by Anne Waiguru and the other persons that my fellow panelists are talking about. You see, other than for the person who is eyeing a position at the national level, because politics, to be true, is essentially about interest. Okay. For a politician who is eyeing a position, parliamentary, gubernatorial, senatorial, MCA, you would first and foremost ask yourself, what is the ground saying? As we speak, which party seems to be, holding sway within my constituency or within my county? Okay. So that in answer to that question, one would expect that in view of the fact that, you know, the handshake team has not so far moved fully to the ground in Mount Kenya, if the local politicians were to ask themselves that question, then of course you'd expect that sort of a person, at least as of now, to tend towards the UDA wing of government. UDA wing of the UDA political party.
Okay.
Of course, that has got nothing to do with which political party will, in the end of the day, form the national government. Because again, if you look at it from the perspective of national dynamics, you are aware that if you take, for example, Raila Odinga, and given the following that he ordinarily has tried and tested, then, of course, the saying, or rather the dynamics are such that for him and his team to win the next presidential election, he will need not, as it were, 100% of the Mount Kenya vote, but probably just some significant segment, maybe 40% or thereabout. So that all I can say is that going forward, we would expect fireworks. I'll assure you that you will see much more defection. Some of the fellas who have made moves, don't be surprised if towards January, February, they'll be moving back to the coalition that will have then been crafted between ODM, Jubilee Party, and as I anticipate, probably also involving the Oka unit.
Okay.
Yes.
Well noted, Wakili. Yeah.
Even as he does mathematics, I love mathematics because I am a data person, and at core, I am a data person. In 2007, ODM is said to have won the presidency against PNU narrowly, that it only took Tharaka Nithi to shift that particular win. Yet, Kalonzo had actually moved away from ODM, and he went away with a whooping 700,000 votes. Imagine if Kalonzo was with Raila in 2007. There might have been, it might have been very difficult for anyone to actually tilt the results. In 2013, and it's on record, it's out there, President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto won against Raila with a margin of 8,000 votes. I'm talking about 8K votes. Yet Mudavadi had gone away with UDA, and he ended up with 400,000 votes. What am I trying to say? Is that when he does the mathematics he's doing about 2022, he is assuming that Western will remain intact for Raila the way it has been, and that cost will remain intact. Forgetting that the Ma region has been doing business. It has all but flipped. Okay. You look at the Turkana bit of it, it has flipped. Western is actually a contested area. So has become cost, for example. So, assuming that if he gets anything, my advice to Raila would be, if I were to advise him, is that he needs to actually not to waste a lot of time in Central. Because as it is, he's losing what he has. And if you read the Ethiopian writer called Hamatuma, he's done a very good story. And the opening of that story, he says that our elders have told us that as we reach for what is up, we sometimes drop what is under our armpit. And that is what Raila is doing. He's dropped Western, he's dropped the Ma region, he's dropped Turkana, you could actually go back to the coast, and it's now, for the first time, it's actually contested space. You even are not so sure how, if, for example, Oka would stay. A number of Oka members do not have a problem working with William. So I do not know the kind of witchcraft Wakili is talking about when he tries to work around those numbers and saying that all the trailer needs is just about 40%. He needs to look back and see how alliance building or failure to build alliances has actually cost Raila in the past. In 2007, Raila gave us the magic of building alliances. Okay. If he will go back to that and probably strengthen it, it will work. But he's not doing that. He is now, in fact, losing Waiguru, for example, reminds me of a Nigerian saying that a man who hangs around a beautiful lady without saying a word, he ends up fetching water for the guests during the girl's wedding. Waiguru was around Raila for a very long time, but then Raila is probably a life unto himself, and Waiguru thought they're taking her for a ride, and she moved on.
Okay.
And Raila might actually witness Waiguru's swearing in as the deputy president in 2013, and that is exactly going back to the Nigerian saying that he hanged around a beautiful woman, he said nothing. Beautiful girl, said nothing. He ends up fetching water for the guests during that particular wedding that will happen next year in 2022. Yeah.
No, but how big of an impact is losing Waiguru to the ODM and Jubilee camp from where you sit, Maliba, briefly?
You know, the more we get older, sometimes we look at the people in the arena and think that they are just quite normal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at everyone else from Central at the moment. You know, for the first time since 1992, Central does not have a presumptive presidential candidate. I'm trying to look at everybody who's there, from Martha Karua, Moses Kuria, Kiunjuri, Gachagua, and everybody else. And the truth is that if you cannot see that Waiguru honestly has got some level of profile, she's a gem. And that is why her defection actually caused a lot of problems. Otherwise, if it was any ordinary, you wouldn't see the kind of feelings that you have seen, the pressures that have actually followed after that. Now people are moving in to kick others out of the party. The move by Waiguru was actually a power move. And sometimes, by the way, when the ground becomes so hostile, what you need to do is just to go at the top and realize that you still can continue moving. Probably that's what she has done. I think the move she did was a power move. And that is going to actually reverberate across the political spectrum for quite a while.
Okay, well noted. And perhaps, Ngunjiri, as you equally add your voice, Maliba just mentioned that a couple of areas are contested right now, Western being amongst them. And interestingly, today, the Ford Kenya party is set to hold a National Delegates Conference. It was contested earlier on, but they seem to be going on at least one faction of the Ford Kenya party. Let's just take a look at this story before you give your comments on it, Ngunjiri, where preparations right now in top gear at the Bomas of Kenya, where a large tent to the house, or where a large tent rather to house the delegates was erected in an open field. 2,000 delegates from across the country are expected to conglomerate there today, and the Moses Wetangula-led party will elect national officials, nominate its presidential candidate, review and or ratify policies and rules of the party and decisions of other organs of the party. The delegates would also consider, review and or amend the party constitution. Remember, Ford Kenya is part of the One Kenya Alliance, so let's take a look at some of the preparations before this NDC is held.
5 years we need to have the new office bearers of the party, and therefore we are having election tomorrow to be able to elect the officials of our party. Ford Kenya is a co-founder of One Kenya Alliance, and therefore members, the delegates will want to know the direction of the national politics. We want to form the next government through OCA, and hope and pray our party leader will be a presidential candidate from tomorrow, and God willing, he'll be the next president of this Republic of Kenya.
We have for long waited for this day. And the conditions that have been making us not do this one was the conditions of COVID. Now that we are free, the country has been opened up. We have made all the logistical arrangements of coming and going back of our delegates.
Chama ya Ford Kenya ni chama iko na umoja licha ya mambo mengine kuandikwa ama wengine kutaka kulete mambo ya kugawa chama.
We are here to assure our delegates that everything is set for tomorrow. We want to assure them that their security while in Bomas is taken care of. We are here to assure them that they are coming to renew the mandate of new national leaders of this party.
Okay, so it seems all things are set for that NDC meeting today, irrespective of the confusion that was there previously. The Wetangula-led faction seems to be going on with the NDC. But Ngunjiri, let's blow it out of proportions and perhaps talk about the Western Kenya region, which, according to the front runners, Wetangula, and we equally have Mudavadi, it should be safely within the One Kenya alliance. But the DP has equally been making forays in the particular region. And just before the story ran, we were talking about areas that might have been perceived as Raila Odinga's strongholds, but might be shifting. Is this one of those areas from where you sit, even as you react on the NDC that is set to be held?
In the last election, we saw Jubilee getting certain positions within Western region. We also saw elected independents, and we did not see Ford Kenya getting an elected member of parliament in Central, and we do not have ANC also getting an elected member of parliament in Central Kenya. What does this tell you? This tells you that in Western Kenya, there is room for other politicians who come from other regions to explore and quote people and win over people. Today, or rather the National Assembly of Kenya has, I think, a whip who comes from Navakoro or something, a constituency called like that. Benjamin Washiali also comes from the same constituency. We have, I think, a senator elected on ODM. So this tells you that apart from Bungoma, where I think even certain members of parliament belong to Jubilee, and where Moses Wetangula comes from, that is the home area of Moses Wetangula, you can actually be able to see imprints of people who supported Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in the last election. For this one, and I'm particularly concerned by the nature of people who are talking in that press conference, I am almost convinced that this National Delegates Conference that is happening in Bomas has largely entirely people across either Trans Nzoia or Bungoma there. This is a culture that, Jesse, I think the political parties of this country must kill. At least we saw ANC giving the position of Secretary General to someone who comes from another region and trying to populate that with other people from Nyanza and all those.
Okay.
But still, the kind of wrangles that we saw Wafula Wamunyinyi and Moses Wetangula in are not as a result of a nationalist approach or an approach to seek solutions for the supporters of the party. This was a Bungoma contest. And that is why I think that Ford Kenya today, and I am concerned also by the comment of saying that they are going to renew the mandate of those officials.
Okay.
I was thinking that they were going to elect officials, not to renew the mandate of those that exist. Here, I find Wafula Wamunyinyi, who was leading the other camp, as having seen the impotence of the Ford Kenya leadership at the moment, and now trying to overthrow the leadership and maybe create a more vibrant and national party. So looking at it now from the turf of the Western region, I think if you ask Moses Wetangula the number of times he has participated in nation building in Bungoma this month or this year, you can actually perhaps get that the Deputy President William Ruto has participated in more activities in Bungoma than Moses Wetangula.
Well, he's not here to defend himself.
If I'm talking on a probability of balance.
Okay.
You most likely find that. If today you seek to find the number of nation-building activities that Musalia Mudavadi has participated in within the Western region, comparing to the ones that William Ruto has done, on a balance of probability, it is most likely that William Ruto has done more activities in Western Kenya. What am I trying to say? I'm saying that in Kenyan politics, as a politician who has contested in a national election, what you have is what is called latent fame. This latent fame is people knowing you. Yes, you come from this region, you are a presidential candidate, you are the leader of this party. But to convert that latent fame into popular political support, where you have people within the last vote in the last village owning you, you must convert that potential support into actual vote by making sure that you are a man of the people. And this is why today in Bungoma you are seeing that I think how many members of parliament have not decided to join somebody who comes from maybe the Luhya tribe, but rather they have decided to follow someone they think will win the next election.
All right.
This is as a result of being depleted by the many years that they have supported Raila Odinga, for example. He has told them that he has won elections, and yet he has not occupied State House.
Okay.
So as supporters of a candidate who keeps on running 5 times, never been able to occupy State House, they will obviously be tired, and they will now seek somebody who has that network and who has campaigned in the larger Kenya. And this is why I was concerned also when I saw Musalia Mudavadi going to Meru, and the majority members of parliament who are behind him are from his own backyard.
Okay.
This is not a strategic way of approaching politics, and that is why 2022, for us who believe in the Hustler Nation, it will not be different from how Jubilee beat these coalitions in 2017. We shall beat them now with a bigger margin, because a contested area like Nyanza, part of Nyamira and Kisii now, has now warmed up to us. And you can already see there is a gap. Raila Odinga doesn't go to Kisii to do nation building activities like he used to do then. So basically, the man of the people who you can actually find imprints. If you go to a village somewhere in Keroka, in Nyamira, and ask when was William Ruto here, they will tell you maybe last week. And he built this church.
I think your point is across, but allow me to challenge it even as Maliba adds to it. Does his presence in this region actually translate to votes, bearing in mind what happened to Kabuchai and Matungu? Perhaps Maliba, just interject right there. Add your voice.
I just needed to first of all say this. On a light note, when Ngunjiri speaks about Mudavadi going to Meru, and the people who receive him are Senator Malala and Ayub Savula and the others, all the way from Kakamega receiving him. Probably Wetangula, not Wetangula, Mudavadi and the ANC party believes in the concept of carrying your own weather. So they arrive, they be their own happiness, and they just move around and feel good. It doesn't hurt to actually come with people. They are light, the plane. I at some point actually served in a space where, you go ahead of the main visitor, you are light from the same plane, and then queue around, or rather along the red tape, and then receive the guest as if you actually were there waiting for them, but then you traveled with them. As of Ford Kenya and Wetangula, that is the curse of largely all major parties in this country, that Ford Kenya was a national party. It was the tip of the spear of the second liberation. The party of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the party of Matiba initially, the party of Shikuku. And then it has been reduced initially to a Luhya party, and now it is just a Bukusu party that is partly in Bungoma and Trans Nzoia. And every time you see, even when Wetangula is being challenged, he is being challenged by somebody from Bungoma, as in a constituency across. So it's still not really changed so much. I see the same fate befalling ODM. If it doesn't go the PNU way, but PNU is largely what will befall Jubilee. So I do not expect there is anything much that will happen in Bomas today with Ford Kenya, because it will just, probably they will endorse Wetangula to become both the presidential flag bearer and the senatorial hopeful for Bungoma again. Is the only man I actually see being endorsed for 2 seats at the same time, when the other people are actually, other parties are saying that we are endorsing you. In my clan where I come from in Wanga guys in Mumias, they would say that we curse you. The word curse you does not necessarily say that they are cursing you, but when they are putting you out and sending you out to go to a battle, they will say "Ehotsuva," as in I am sending you out. The same word can actually be used to curse, but it's the same way of commissioning you to go out. But Wetangula, you will actually realize that guys are sending him to become the senator for Bungoma, and at the same time saying that he's running for president. So he habitually has been threatening to run for president, but he never crosses River Luahaha. That is the river between Trans Nzoia and Uasin Gishu as you come to Nairobi. He never just threatens he's coming to run for president, and that is where he stops. So I don't expect it to be so much. But I do not want to be so hard on him, because I think in this particular era of alliance building and defections, Wetangula could actually become a very good package for UDA in the long run.
Interesting way to look at it. Wakili, as we finalize, and perhaps as you give your comments on Ford Kenya, the National Delegates Conference happening today, the space of national parties within the country, as Maliba mentioned, is perhaps wanting. Do you find issues to do with party ideologies, with how fast a political leader might shift camps from one party to the other, irrespective of what this party holds as its key tenets into why it was constituted? Well, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, particularly if you look at the Ford Kenya Delegates Conference that is slotted for today. Because look at it in terms of history. Of course, we all know where Ford Kenya was and its place in the liberation struggle. Of course, not to forget the fact, and let us not underrate it, even as you say that it's a mere Ubukusu party as it stands now, but the leadership of Ford Kenya, you know, it's a party that has churned the likes of the late Vice President Kijana Wamalwa. We had the likes of the UNCTAD Secretary General, Dr. Mukhisa Kitui, and of course now we have Wetangula at the helm, so that we see a people who ordinarily, you know, they stand their grounds, they stand in terms of principles. But of course, given the coalition politics that we have and the understanding that we have to appreciate that in Kenya now you only win based on coalitions, Ford Kenya will definitely play an important role in the end of the day, because all persons, I mean all parties, and I know the handshake team would definitely need Wetangula to be part and parcel of it. Of course, I'm also aware, and this is based on the discussion mood that you had put across, in terms of how is Western flowing, what direction would Western take. We know that ordinarily in the last elections, Western has always tended to move the direction of Raila Odinga, notwithstanding the fact that they had their presidential aspirants coming from that area. I don't see that changing much in the coming election. Of course, bearing in mind the fact that there's a sense in which Raila Odinga traces his lineage and ancestry from the Western region, particularly from where my fellow panelists who have realized comes from, Mumia. There's also the fact that when Raila Odinga was at the helm, that is the Grand Coalition government, there's a sense in which he demonstrated through the fact that quite a number of influential positions in cabinet and name it were held by personalities from the Western region. So that I really don't see that changing. Now, of course, there is a small issue of mistrust that has developed. And from where I sit, I think probably ODM may not have handled things well, particularly insofar as the question of sharing the political parties' funds. And, you know, there are certain words that were thrown here and there which could I attribute to not so good manners, and which may have occasioned the mistrust that there is. However, I know that going towards the election, and given that this will basically be a two-horse race, most of these fellas, particularly ANC and Ford Kenya, would then be bulldozed by the ground to follow one of the horses. And I can honestly bet that they shall move the direction of the handshake. And in the end of the day, I see that team clocking 80 to 90% of the Western vote in the end of the day.
Okay, I see, Wakili, you're back with the statistics, as Maliba had mentioned earlier. But all things said and done, Maliba, since this region might be close to your heart, do you see a point in time where the word elusive and Luhya unity won't be put in the same sentence?
Luhyas came to Kenya about 7 BC. All other tribes, I think very few other tribes actually, apart from the Ogiek, the other oldest group that was in this country much earlier were the Luhyas, who came to what is present-day Kenya in 7 BC. And of course, they came in tranches and small groups. So essentially, the Luhyas are not one group, one homogeneous group. They are different, actually 18 sub-tribes. We call them sub-tribes, not clans, because under sub-tribes, then you find their clans. But be that as it may, Luhyas have had unity before. When Masinde Muliro was available, Luhyas united behind him. They, by the way, united behind Mudavadi's father, and they supported Mudavadi because they thought that an apple does not fall so far from the tree. Unfortunately, he's not ended up being the apple they thought, because also trees just produce ashes. Things happen that way. So, elusive Luhya unity. Luhyas love strong leaders. And that is why you see even people who pretend to be strong by just being noisemakers, for example, like Malala, they all of a sudden get traction because Luhyas are looking for real leadership. They are looking for a stronger leader. In Kakamega, for example, Kakamega has got 12 constituencies. In the last election, 5 of them went to ANC, 4 went to Jubilee. ODM had only 2, and Ford Kenya had 1. That tells you the nature of how then the people in the West try to actually put through. Even in Vihiga, where Mudavadi comes from, there are members of ODM there, and he was, and he's the party leader of ANC. His own governor comes from ODM. He had his own candidate on ANC who actually did not make through. So, on issue of Luhya unity, we actually must contextualize it and look at it not from the narrow perspective. First of all, Luhyas are actually very democratic. We are aspiring as a nation to get to a place where people can actually make choices without necessarily being straight-jacketed into choices because you belong to this particular region. Where Luhyas are is where Kenya is actually aspiring to go. So I do not even know how that is even looked at, and then people chuckle around it and it's looked at as weakness. But if it were weakness, then I think it's a good weakness, because then Luhyas are not easily going to fight each other because of political persuasions. When the rest of us are actually being bullied elsewhere and being bandied, the Luhyas are actually easy. Long time ago, you would get people like Ngede getting their votes there, Kukubo getting his own share of votes. Everybody gets something from Luhya land. And that is the kind of Kenya we want, so that somebody comes to you, convinces you, and then you vote them based on your conviction, and you are not rallied by use of other means, either coercion or something else. So Luhya unity will eventually come, probably in 2027 when I run for president.
I think that's a proper note to end this conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming and making time. Arnold Maliba, right there, Executive Director, Open Future Hub. Kariuki Ngunjiri, as always, it's a pleasure. Political analyst and, as we call him right here, philosopher. Ken Amondi, thank you for making time and joining the panel as well. Advocate of the High Court.